moves forward, I plan to support it because it includes important reforms that will help small businesses. We must also ensure these reforms are actually helping the businesses that need it most, our small manufacturers and innovators. My amendment will make that happen, and I urge my colleagues to support it, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentlelady reserves her time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
I rise to claim time in opposition.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, again, the underlying piece of legislation is a piece of legislation that is designed to ensure that small businesses have an on-ramp to equity financing into the IPO market. And let's recall again, why are we seeing so few IPOs? Why are we continuing in this 8% plus unemployment environment for over 3 years, the longest period of sustained high employment since the Great Depression? Well, I listened closely to business people in the 5th Congressional District of Texas. I listened to other job creators around America, and here's what I hear. John Mackey, co-founder and CEO of Whole Foods Market, quote, "In some cases, regulations have gone too far, and it really makes it difficult for small businesses. There's too much bureaucracy and red tape. Taxes on business are very high, so we're not creating the enabling conditions that allow businesses to get started. We're trying to cut away red tape with this Jobs Act." Andrew Putzard, CEO, PKE Restaurants, quote, "Government just doesn't understand how much uncertainty it creates in the economy when it attempts to regulate what the private sector does. And it really doesn't understand what the private sector does." Bernie Marcus, co-founder, former CEO of Home Depot, quote, "Having built a small business into a big one, I can tell you that today the impediments that the government imposes are almost impossible to deal with. Home Depot would have never succeeded if we tried to start it today." Let me repeat that, Madam Chair. Home Depot would never have succeeded if we tried to start it today. Every day you see rules and regulations from a group of Washington bureaucrats who know nothing about running a business. And I mean every day. It's become stifling. If you're a small businessman, the only way to deal with it is to work harder, put in more hours, and let people go. When you consider that something like 70% of the American people work for small businesses, you are talking about a big economic impact. Just 3 voices, Madam Chair, from America's job creators. Again, it's not a real secret why we've had a dearth of IPOs. So I understand the gentlelady's amendment is to have the SEC issue a report. Number one, I would also note, since these are public filings, we ourselves as members of Congress will have no trouble whatsoever understanding how many companies will go public in the next year. And I understand the gentlelady's argument. I respect that. But again, it's just one more reporting burden that, frankly, is being placed on the SEC. Now, we've had a debate. And the ranking member has brought up many times he's unhappy with the level of funding that the SEC has received. In fact, I would note, however, that even the President of the United States in his budget is not trying to give the SEC what they have requested. But what the ranking member has said, first of all, studies are not done for free by the SEC. I think we have got a further burdening of the SEC with more work. Given the current decision to restrict SEC funding, I will be much more careful about burdening them with studies which will inevitably come at the expense of more important duties. So again, it's a debate. Does the SEC have the right amount of resources? Too much? Too many? I don't know. That's a legitimate debate. But apparently he thought strongly enough that we should not be furthering the SEC with further burdens at this time. And for all of those reasons, I would urge that we defeat the amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from California.
Madam Chairwoman, I yield myself the balance of the time.
Gentlelady
of my
recognized.
time. As I said initially, this amendment is simple and it's straightforward. It simply ensures that the provisions of the bill are actually helping small businesses grow and hire more workers. It's an amendment about oversight and accountability. And it focuses especially on the manufacturers and high-tech innovators that are so critical to future economic growth. And I would yield how much time remains on our side?
5 seconds remaining.
I will yield the balance of my time to my ranking member.
I appreciate the gentleman from Texas selectively quoting me, and I do not want to pile on studies, but this one makes a great deal of sense.
Time's expired. The gentleman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I inquire how much time I have remaining?
Gentleman from Texas has 1 minute remaining.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll yield myself the balance of the time.
Gentleman's recognized.
You know, among other reasons I would think that we should oppose this amendment, number one, I'm not sure what we're going to learn in 1 year. We didn't get into this terrible environment of high unemployment overnight. Frankly, it took 3 years of the burdens that this administration has placed on small businesses. I don't know if we're going to get out of it overnight. So number one, I don't believe that 1 year is particularly helpful. But again, we can have a debate about the root causes. We're already going to know which companies go public. And at some point in time, you have to see, are the benefits to be derived from the report, from the regulation, worth the cost? I simply don't see it, Madam Chair. Again, I would urge defeat of the amendment. I yield back the balance of my time.
The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from California. And those in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no.
No.
In the opinion of the chairs, the noes have it, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair,
Gentlelady from California.
I respectfully ask for a recorded vote.
Recorded vote is requested, and pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentlelady from California will be postponed. It is now in order to consider amendment number 17, printed in House Report 112 through 409. For what purpose does the gentleman from Iowa seek recognition?
I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will designate the amendment.
Amendment number 17, printed in House Report number 112-409, offered by Mr. Loebsack of Iowa.
Pursuant to House Resolution 572, the gentleman from Iowa, Mr. Loebsack, and a member opposed will each control 5 minutes, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from Iowa.
Madam Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I first want to thank Congressman Fincher and the Financial Services Committee for bringing this package forward. I'm encouraged the House is taking steps today to support small businesses, and I would urge and hope the House will take up additional legislation to create jobs. As any Iowa family can tell you, our nation is still recovering from the worst recession since the Great Depression, and Congress's focus must be on jobs. Our unemployment rate is painfully high, still painfully high, and has been a long-term problem for millions of Americans and thousands of Iowans. We need to be working on legislation to boost our economy, and helping our small businesses flourish is an important step in that direction. This is why I'm offering this amendment to ensure provisions of this legislation are made widely available, and particularly to women-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned businesses, to make sure that they are informed of changes that might help. Small businesses will be leaders in helping our country climb out of the recession. I'm home every weekend in Iowa, and I hear time and again that two big problems small businesses face is access to capital and finding skilled workers. In order for this bill to be effective, small and medium businesses must be aware of the new opportunities they will have to expand their business and raise capital. This will be particularly important for the segment of businesses I am targeting in my amendment: women-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned businesses. Specifically, my amendment would require the Securities and Exchange Commission to provide information online and also conduct outreach to these businesses to help them utilize the changes made through this legislation. Especially since it is Women's History Month, there is no better time to highlight the importance of women-owned businesses to our economy. It's estimated there are over 8 million women-owned businesses in the United States, generating nearly $1.3 trillion in revenues and employing nearly 8 million people. Women-owned businesses account for almost 30% of U.S. firms and are growing in some non-traditional areas as well. Especially during these tough economic times that are weighing heavily on our veterans and their families, it is also essential we as a nation do all we can to ensure no man or woman who has served our country in uniform should have to fight for a job here at home. Veterans bring to the table many of the skills necessary to run a small business as well and to be leaders in their community. Veterans owned 2.4 million businesses, generated over $1 trillion in receipts, and employed nearly 6 million people. Minority business owners also employed nearly 6 million people with $864 billion in receipts. All small business owners are important, which is why there is a requirement in my amendment to post information about changes in this bill might offer on the SEC website, in addition to conducting outreach for women-owned, veteran-owned, and minority-owned businesses. This amendment does not score according to the nonpartisan CBO and is simply a common-sense way to ensure employers we are trying to target in this legislation are able to use their new tools to grow our economy, these new tools, I should say, to grow our economy and create new jobs and industries. I ask for the support of my colleagues on this common-sense amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Rise to claim time in opposition, although I am not opposed to the bill.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One, I want to thank the gentleman from Iowa for bringing this amendment to the floor. I suspect, given that the SEC already has a fairly comprehensive website, they probably would have done the proper job in outreach on small business issues, but I think as important as the Jobs Act is, that his amendment is helpful to the underlying bill. I also want to thank him for working with us to tailor his amendment to the underlying bill. Again, it is my expectation that the SEC would do this job. This will help ensure that all the benefits of this act will be known throughout the small business community. I urge adoption of the gentleman's amendment, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman reserves his time. The gentleman from Iowa.
Madam Speaker, if I could, I'd like to yield the balance of my time to the gentlewoman from New York.
Gentlelady from New York is recognized for 1.5 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding and compliment him on his very thoughtful amendment and appreciate the support of the other side of the aisle. This amendment is aimed at supporting the growth of small and medium-sized businesses and easing the sometimes daunting task of figuring out just what new legislation will mean to them. This amendment requires the SEC to provide online information and, perhaps more importantly, outreach to small and medium-sized businesses, businesses owned by women, minorities, and veterans. It is widely recognized that such businesses face a unique set of challenges. We should be doing everything we can to encouraging their growth and supporting their success. Again, I compliment the hard work and really meaningful amendment that my friend from the great state of Iowa has put forth, and I urge unanimous support of it and appreciate the support of the other side of the aisle. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back her time. The gentleman from Texas.
Madam Chair, may I inquire how much time I have remaining?
Gentleman from Texas has 4 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll yield myself the balance of the time.
Gentleman's recognized.
Again, I wish to urge adoption of the gentleman's amendment. Madam Chair, I would note that this is the last amendment that we will be debating. So again, I want to use this opportunity to urge all of my colleagues to support the Jobs Act. We again know that jobs, economic growth, the state of our economy continues to be the most pressing issue we are facing in the nation today. It is foremost on the minds of our constituents. I want to thank the Republican leader, the gentleman from Virginia, for his leadership in bringing this effort to the floor. I certainly want to thank the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, Mr. Baucus of Alabama, and the prime author of the legislation, the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Fincher, who has been very active in this debate. I also want to thank the representatives, or my colleagues from the other side of the aisle, to working with us. Again, it is challenging, most challenging to find areas of consensus, most challenging to find the ability to move bipartisan legislation. I think this is a day, a moment that can be celebrated by all members. It certainly doesn't do what we would totally like done on our side of the aisle, and I'm sure my friends on the other side of the aisle have the same thing to say. But it is a step in the right direction for allowing more startups to access equity capital to create more jobs for a nation in desperate need of more job growth and more economic growth. Again, we know the President, in his statement of administrative policy, has indicated a desire to sign this piece of legislation, and I look forward to the President having that opportunity. I hope it is not our last opportunity to work on a bipartisan basis in this Congress and in this year, but it is certainly a good start and something I believe the American people will celebrate. And again, I want to urge adoption of the gentleman's amendment. I want to urge all my colleagues to support the bill, and let's find ways to grow this economy and get America back to work. I yield back to balance my time.
Gentleman from Texas yields back the balance of his time. The gentleman from Iowa has 30 seconds remaining, if he would like to close.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. I really do appreciate the support from the other side of the aisle for this amendment. I concur with my colleague from Texas in his sentiment that the American people want us to work together to get America back to work again. That's what I'm hearing when I'm home every weekend in my district. I appreciate the support from the gentlewoman from New York as well. Hopefully this is the beginning of something bigger where we can work across the aisle, get America back to work, get this economy back on track, and I yield back to balance my time.
Gentleman yields back his time, and the question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Iowa. Those in favor will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
Madam Chair, I move the committee do now rise.
The question is on the motion that the committee rise. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the committee rises.
Madam Chairman.
Mr. Speaker, the Committee on the Whole House on the State of the Union, having had under consideration H.R. 3606, directs me to report that it has come to no resolution thereon.
The Chair of the Committee of the Whole House on the State of the Union reports that the committee has under consideration H.R. 3606 and has come to no resolution thereon. The Chair lays before the House a communication.
The Honorable the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir. Pursuant to the permission granted in Clause 2H of Rule 2 of the Rules of the U.S. House of Representatives, the clerk received the following message from the Secretary of the Senate on March 8, 2012 at 9:34 a.m. that the Senate passed Senate 1855. With best wishes, I am, signed sincerely, Karen L. Haas.
Pursuant to Clause 12 of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until approximately 11:45 a.m. today.
So the House is in recess now. We'll be back in at 11:45, where they'll be wrapping up some final